Welcome to the first podcast of African Student Organization at Michigan Technological University. I'll be your host. My name is Askai Fungura. At Michigan Technological University, there is like a vibrant African community, and this podcast is a platform for them to showcase how they are staying here at Michigan Technological University. So they will be talking about their professional lives, their research, their academic achievements, and how they are making sure that it complements their social lives, and how they manage also to keep their identity and also to socialize with people from all over the world here at Michigan Technological University. Most of what will be shown here will be from different departments and from different countries, so within the African community. Okay. Today, I'm very much humbled to introduce one of my seniors. I've been a student here for a year, and when I came here, there was one of the welcoming faces from the president of ASO, and it meant a lot, a friendly face when you're a new person at a new university. So today, I'll be introducing our president, Alfred. How are you? Alfred?
I'm fine. It's a sunny day today, so I'm not complaining. It's a nice day.
Well, what would you say are the best highlights of Michigan Technological University as a whole? What would you say makes Michigan Technological University tick?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'll start by saying, in your introduction, you're talking about seeing a friendly face, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that sums up the Michigan Tech community very well. It sums up also the African students community in the same light, because when I came here in 2018, I also needed a friendly face. Interestingly, the first friendly face that I met was someone who subsequently became a roommate from Bangladesh. So, it's quite an international community. But then within an hour, I got a visit from the ASO president of the time. And strangely, I ended up sharing an office with the same fella. So it is that sense of you're away from home, but then you get to meet people that give you a sense of home and of warmth. And you would agree with me after spending is it a year here that finding people who are warm is very important, especially in this cold climate that we find ourselves in.
Yeah,
So
that's true,
one of the great things that really makes Michigan Tech tick is the warm people that you find here. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. That's good. So, since we are talking about African Student Organization, and this is our first podcast, personally, as a host, I think I would be interested to maybe know about the history, where it came from, and why was it formed. Yeah.
Well, it's a great question. I wish I knew the entire history of this organization, but I had the opportunity 2 years ago to go to the library, the MTU library, and the archives in the library. So we're doing some work on archival work, and great thing is we found these very old journals, and in one of those boxes with the journals, we found one that belonged to the Black Students Organization. And so this organization existed in the 1950s, and I went through them, and you'd find that at the time there wasn't really an African student organization. And there wasn't a separate Black Students Association as we find today in Michigan Tech. There was one big organization for people who identify like you and I, and they called it a Black Students Organization. And being from Ghana, it was fascinating to see Ghanaian names, names that you'd immediately identify. So I recall seeing an Opokwajman, and there's like, oh wow, that's a Ghanaian right there, and it was fascinating. So something like that existed, right? One of the things that I took away from the archives that day was in 1968 when Martin Luther King Jr. was killed. There was a vigil on Michigan Tech campus, and the Black Student Organization played a key role in working with that. In the same year, there was actually a visit from the Nigerian ambassador to the United States on Michigan Tech's campus. So so very fascinating things happened in those years. You lose a bit of the records as the years pass by, but it seems eventually there was a break between the Black students, which resulted in creating a Black Students Association and an African Student Organization. Part of that I have heard had to do with the African Students Organization tends to have graduate students, tends to have a body of graduate students, and the Black Students Association tends to have a body that is more undergraduate. And so there were not as much aligning in terms of social life and academic work, and there seemed to be a bit of a breakaway in there. In the period, ASO has, one of the things we're famous for at Michigan Tech is African Night. And ASO has had 20 African Nights, and it's held annually. So we can think that there's been consistently a functioning African student organization for at least 20 years on Michigan Tech's campus. And it's a great feeling. We still do collaborate with the Black Student Association and other organizations that caters to the needs of Black identifying people or people who identify as having come from the motherland, right? So that's just a bit of history in there. The idea has always been, and if you ever get the chance to see our website, the idea has always been to represent African culture and African diversity in a far-off place like Houghton, right? And to champion this identity and culture through our activities in order to provide some kind of education also, right? About what the conceptions and misconceptions of Africa are in a space like Houghton and beyond. So, and historically, that is what we've been doing. We've been doing it at Parade of Nations, a great function that's held here in Houghton and Hancock. We've been doing it at African Night, like I said, but we've been doing it in various other activities on campus.
Okay, that's very, very informative and very good to know. So maybe the next question might be on the activities, I guess, because when people meet, they might want to maybe relax, get to know maybe what happens in different countries. Even though we are from Africa, we have our diversity also within Africa. So other than Africa Night, which other activities have been placed to ensure that people enjoy more and spend more time together and get to know each other?
Yeah, great. I mean, and I like the fact that you're talking about diversity. People tend to make that mistake that this huge African continent, right, is just this.
It's a country, yeah.
Yeah, it's very frustrating when that happens, right? And you're from Zimbabwe, so, and I'm from Ghana. I've never been to Zimbabwe, right? And I've never had Zimbabwean cuisine, and I assume it's very different because there's a different history, there's a different culture. But it goes to one of the things that brings us together is food, isn't it?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah, everyone needs a full belly. And that's one of the ways that we try to share the diversity of our culture is in the food. And so we do have meetings that are designated as food meetings. So they're potlucks. And so you have people from different African countries cooking something small. You know, it doesn't have to be this grand buffet, but you just cook something small that is native or indigenous to your culture. And you bring it and we all get a taste of it and you tell us about it, right? And it's beautiful. So you could have people coming from Rwanda, people coming in from Ghana, from Nigeria, and you know, we're all feasting in on that and we're getting a sense of the values, you know, that go into it. We've had outreach programs before COVID.
Okay.
You know, so before COVID happened, we had some outreach programs. We went to the Dollar Bay School to talk about African cultures, literature, and you know, people, you get the opportunity to get out, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And be together in that sense. We love to go to the beach.
Okay.
So I think last summer we had that. We were at the beach and you know, we had the bonfire going. We had African music from. And we try to encourage all our members to bring music from the countries. Yeah, so you get to hear music from all around the continent and different dances and food again, right? And then we before COVID hit, we also had the African dance. We had the African dance classes that we held in the SDC, and people would register, and we had an instructor. So we play African music and we learn different, you know, dances from across Africa. You get to work out, you get to hang out with people, and it was fun. So these are some of the things that we managed to do before COVID and some of them during COVID. We're hoping that now that, knock on wood, seems that COVID is on the retreat, we can go back to doing a bit more of some of these things. Yeah.
New students will be coming from Africa. I know that traveling from Africa is not easy, and most of us will not be so privileged to be having the enough funds to come here. So there will be like a lot of struggle that happens when a person is coming from Africa to start studying here. So to what extent does ASO help the students, maybe outside the financial burdens, but we are saying to make it easier to settle here?
I'm glad you said outside the financial burden, because, but at least to even touch on the whatever financial burden there might be, I would say, you know, I was sharing this with someone earlier that in my native tongue, we do say that meaning literally translates into if you sell your disease, you get medicine for it. What we're trying to say is if you talk about whatever challenges you're facing, you know, that's one way to start solving these challenges. That's how you get a solution to them. So we might not be in a position to ease your financial burdens, but we might be in a position to direct you towards quarters where you can talk to those who are, you know, in those more privileged positions. So if you're coming to Michigan Tech and you're African and you're out there and you're wondering, we can't solve those, but you can start the conversation with us and we can see if there are people we can talk to. We cannot make any promises in relation to that. But what we can say is you do have a family here. It is difficult to leave the homeland and to settle in Houghton right? You were saying that it's hard to travel from Africa. I think it's just hard to travel to Houghton from anywhere in the world, really. But what is most satisfying at the end of the journey is to get to the destination and find that there's a family waiting for you. And ASO is that family that is waiting for you here. We've been working with the international programs, IPS, and Kelly Raffaelli is a great director at the IPS. They do student pickups from airports, and we work with them to do that. And on occasions where African students have not had the opportunity to join the larger MTU group of students coming in for the pickup, we've reached out to various Africans to help, so you don't get stranded. We won't let you get stranded, right? If there are other extenuating issues like where to lay your head a bit, we've had Africans reach out even before you get here. Reach out, say, hey, I've gained admission, I'm coming to Michigan Tech, but I don't know what to do about housing. It's all right to reach out because none of us knew what to do about housing when we were coming, right? So then we can point out, you need to send an email to housing, you need to register with housing if you want to get into Daniel Hines, this is how you do that. Or are you interested in staying off campus? Here are some resources that you can look into. I reached out to the president of the ASO at the time when I was coming about housing, and he made it a point to go and look at the apartment before I even came in, just to be sure that this is somewhere, to be sure that, this is somewhere you'd be comfortable. This is how it looks like. These are the facilities and amenities available. Does it satisfy your needs, right? And so that's why we're here, all right? You need a place to lay your head. You find a place, you can let us know. We can go take a look at it for you. So it's a relationship that goes, to me, beyond that which you would find as, we're just fellow students. We become family. In time, we get together to do all manner of things as families would do in the larger African context of community and togetherness, right? So these are some of the things. So definitely reach out. We have a WhatsApp group chat that we put out information and resources for everything and anything. At that time when COVID hit, and there were problems like, do we need to be online, and can we be online and still satisfy our requirements as international students to be in status? When information came out, we disseminated it immediately through WhatsApp and email. So we also have a seat on the International Student Council, and so in case anything happens that we need to address as being part of the way Michigan Tech is run, we do have a voice that gets to the right people at Michigan Tech. So anything part of your experience at Michigan Tech in Houghton, we're there. We're there to hear you. We're there to send in, whatever issues you may have to the right quarters.
Thank you. Okay. I really liked the part where you were talking about idioms. I think it's something that is the same across Africa, where we have our proverbs, we have our sayings that says a lot in one sentence, So I think maybe in that regard, there might be a lot of students who might be looking forward to coming here to Houghton. So you are the president, and we might be more interested maybe to know about the person, Alfred. What has made Alfred so successful? So it's a way of inspiring, other African students who are already here, and for those who are looking forward to come here at Michigan Tech. So, what kind of research have you been into, and what has been your journey within the research field? Yeah.
Oh, that's a loaded question, right? But, well, yeah. What kind of person am I? Well, in relation to Michigan, so this is my 4th year at Michigan Tech. So I'm a PhD student in the Rhetoric, Theory and Culture program in the Department of Humanities. So 4th year means I should be getting ready to finish.
Yeah, I can spell the PhD. It's like you don't have like the cap yet, but you sound like you already have it,
So yeah, I mean, hopefully, soon enough, right?
Yeah.
I live by a simple motto, and it's one that I picked up. It's a Ghanaian thing, really, to live by mottos. I don't know about Zimbabwe, and some of them, that we pick up when we're in secondary school, right? And when my secondary school's motto really spoke to me, was a Catholic institution, and so it was in Latin, that Omnia Vincit Labor, right, which means perseverance conquers all. And in hard times, whether you're an undergraduate student or you're postgraduate students, it's master's or a PhD, you're going to face challenges, right? And you need to persevere, you need to work hard through it, you need to push through it, and you'd conquer. Eventually you make through those challenges. But the idea isn't that you're supposed to do it by yourself. It is that there will always be support systems, right, around you that you must recognize are there. And my time in Michigan Tech, I've used the counseling folks in the student wellness section to have great conversations. I've used the writing center to help with my writing, even though I'm supposed to be someone who knows about writing, right? I've used the library resource folks to help me with research, and I've used my family, I guess, not to say so much using them, but that's it. It's a support system. So as you persevere, you persevere within that ecology of the support that is around you. Never isolate yourself, right? We do have that tendency as scholars to become this old gray bearded philosopher who is in the tiny corner.
Yeah, that's true.
Thinking about these wonderful ideas, but you're human, right? And human beings are social
beings.
Yes.
No man is an island. Yeah,
exactly. No man is an island. No one is an island. So it's important for me in that. Research-wise, so I did allude to it by saying I'm supposed to be a writing person, right? So my dissertation is on how missing people become literate, and to understand that, I look at computer programming as a literacy, and I put it in conversation with what I consider to be an established literacy, which is academic writing, right? And I look at how people whose process of knowledge creation have been sidelined or have not normally been at the center of literacy research, how these people's practices of becoming literate can inform what we understand about writing. And, and in extension, can inform what it means to be a human being. Because what a lot of us don't recognize is that we attach so much to a person's ability to read and write. And it's so steeped in power in even moral grounding, right?
Okay.
Such that those who read and write historically, especially in the Western world, to read and write in the alphabetical sense, are those who have wielded power, are those who have shaped
the entire human history.
Exactly, right? And unfortunately, because we did not necessarily have alphabetical writing, there were scholars who, and some of these scholars studied Ghana, right?
Okay.
And would make assumptions about cognitive ability and whatnot. No, that it was flawed. Indeed, it was, in a sense, racist, right? It became a project that would help, make claims of racial superiority and cultural superiority. But we understand, we know better now. We know better to know that alphabetical writing is just one kind of writing, one kind of composition. And by even knowing better, we recognize in most cultures that coding and programming is in itself some kind of writing.
Yeah, that's
right?
true.
But we also know enough to know that how Black folks write culturally, because of their cultural setup, how their lived experiences would differ from maybe white male writers and upper class white male writers and from working class white male writers, right? Or how women, experience the process of becoming literate is very different from how, and women in one context would be different from how women in another context. And all these people are missing in the conversation of what it means to become literate, and by extension, what it means to be human. And that's what I hope to contribute to, a conversation of, we haven't been looking at folks like these, but this is how they're becoming literate in academic writing. And this is how they're becoming literate as coders, as programmers. And
That's
by knowing this,
Mm.
I think we can formulate pedagogies that are more just, socially just and useful, that accepts the experiences of all these people, right? And so no one then is at the margins. Everyone accepts their humanity as they become literate. So yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. I don't know if I make sense in my dissertation.
It makes a lot of sense because in Africa, it was always like when an old man dies, it's like you're putting a library on fire.
Yes.
Like all the knowledge goes with the person. So my interest was actually on what is meant by missing.
Yeah.
And
I like the image that you use, that when an old man dies, it's an entire library that is gone. But there is a truth to that, and then there is also a part of it that's not necessarily true, right? Because then the oral traditions, right? And so there are cultures that had the grill, and so people were aggressively trained, right, to pass on the knowledge, right? And it's a legitimate knowledge making process, and that is part of the problem, right? That Western traditions of history forwarded ideas that if this history is not written, that it is not history. How come, right? But even then, there are questions of how do we define that which is written? Is it because it's alpha, beta, A, B, C, D, then it is written? But is it that there's a symbol system that is accepted conventionally by a people that involves inscribing? Then it's written. And so what about that? And we cannot. You're from Zimbabwe, great Zimbabwe, right? We cannot suggest that all these beautiful civilizations did not have conventions of writing.
I understand.
Yeah, and we accept our humanity through all that, don't we? We accept that we are human, legitimately, through these kind of processes and mental activities. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that perspective, because it was starting to bring a lot of issues into my head. Like, you were talking about issues of oral tradition, people passing things down through oral tradition. But then during these times, there are issues also of urbanization and issues like that. So our grandparents no longer have people to pass down their knowledge to, because the kids might stay with their parents somewhere, and you are here in America, that's sort of a thing. So I think your research will go a long way, because if an old man back home can put what their thoughts and what they feel like on paper, they can easily leave something that their grandkids can look up to as time moves on.
But you make an interesting point. When you bring in paper but that's actually part of my research, is also the materials of literacy, right? So the technologies that are emerging as we also emerge as literate beings. And it's interesting, there's the technology that allows us to pass on whatever traditions we seek to pass on, but how are we harnessing these technologies? How are we making use of the affordances that are there? And it's maybe something we need to consider. But at the heart of all of it, to me, is, do we even value the knowledge? Because you need to value that knowledge in order to accept that it ought to be passed down. So you need to even accept that it is knowledge. Okay. And we've had a history through the colonial aggression and endeavor that sought to discount our indigenous knowledge. And so that kind of history has had the effect, and I'm speaking broadly, a bit broadly, but I'm also hedging partially. But that kind of history has also led to too many of us thinking that indigenous knowledge is not scientific knowledge, is not knowledge, right? And so part of my agenda is to reclaim knowledge of the missing peoples, placed in an African context. And I will encourage anyone who listens to us to take up a bit of reading on decolonial methods and decolonial identities, so to decolonize knowledge. And so there's a great fruitful conversation on decolonizing knowledge, right, going on in the academy that might be useful also back for how we practice other things. Yeah, so I just wanted to bring that in and not lose it.
That's interesting. Yeah, my next question is also a personal question, I guess. There are a lot of videos that tell, like, when people are new, they are coming here to Michigan Tech, they will miss a lot of food from their home countries, So what would you give as an advice, maybe for a person from Ghana or maybe a person from Africa in general, maybe to bring here what they will miss when they come to Horton?
Well, what will they miss? They will miss the food, for sure. They will. And we don't have an African market here, so that plays a role. But there is one in Chicago, which is very accessible, and you'd probably find anything that you miss. If you go down, especially if you're Ghanaian, that I can tell you. If you happen to go down to Chicago, you will find anything you miss. And there are a few Ghanaian restaurants there that, as I talk about, I begin salivating, thinking about the good food. But when you're coming, you're tempted to pack up a lot of things.
Okay.
You should always check with the TSA
Uh-huh.
and be sure that what you're packing can legally enter the country.
Okay.
Because you don't want any issues with border customs when you get
yeah,
here.
you can bring seeds,
Yes,
but it's
so
food, Yeah.
Exactly. So you I know, for example, you can bring meat.
Okay.
Of a certain type. So you really should go in the website and be sure that you're bringing the right stuff.
Okay.
But definitely bring your spices. Definitely bring if you're like me and you love fufu, definitely bring some meat fufu, that you can make. If you're like me and you like banku, definitely buy some meat banku so you can come in and then prepare some of that. I loved Tom Brown when I was back home in Ghana. I still love it here. So you might not have the time to put together all those ingredients and roast it. Buy, bring some of that. You cannot come without your gari. You cannot come without your gari. You can't come without your shito. Yes, these. I have heard it is difficult to get Maggi, the Maggi cubes as we have them back home. And so I recommend you bring as much as you can. I wouldn't, if I had the chance to do it all over again, I wouldn't pack up as much clothes because the clothes don't do what you need them to do.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? The weather is cold. And whatever it is that you wear back home, most likely isn't going to cut it. So I wouldn't pack up as much clothes as I packed. Okay. I'd probably pack more food.
Okay.
But do pack warm, thermal stuff before as you're traveling in, because when you get to Chicago or wherever you land in, it's going to be colder than Ghana. So you want to, have some of that. The feeling of nostalgia that you would get when you start missing all the delicacies of home is alleviated also when you join ASO when you get here, right? Because when you feel like it, you probably want to call a friend that, hey, I haven't had palm nut soup in a while. Do you have any? And they may have some, and you get a taste of it with a bit of kakao in it, and then you feel like, this is home once again, right? Or you're saying, I haven't had egusi in a long time, and then one other person has it, and then it becomes you share all these delicacies. So bring as much as you can. Remember that there are limitations on to how much you can pack. Remember to check with TSA also that whatever you're bringing is legal, but also remember you're joining a family.
Yeah, that's true.
What you leave behind, someone will have here, and we all love sharing, So yeah.
Yeah, that's great, because you were talking of sayings, and in Zimbabwe, we have saying that we can sum in short as saying relationships are improved by food,
Oh, yeah.
So whenever there is food, what they'll be saying is the mood improves, you become happier. And then at the same time also, if you are making a way of making more food, becomes
I love that. That's wise words to live by. Yes.
That's true. That's true. About ASO and where it's going, its inspirations, and how it is evolving with time. So, as a president who has served ASO for some time, what would you say are the milestones that you feel should be achieved by ASO as we move forward?
Yeah, well, that's great. What I would say is we live in very different times, right? And but times that have been very much affected by COVID. But we're also happy to see that we're seeing that light at the end of the tunnel of this journey. And so if it's possible, both health-wise, mentally, whatnot, for Africans and members of ASO to come out, right? And re-establish that sense of activity and energy. That's what I'm looking for in the short term, that we re-inject energy into air. So this podcast is one great way to begin working towards that. But one of the things that I like to point out is that ASO is not for Africans only. And we do have members who are not African. At least we'd say that they're not African by birth, but they've become Africanized, right, by their association with ASO. So we encourage members of the community, Michigan Tech, Houghton, Hancock, wherever you are in the Copper County, up here in the Kirinou, that it's a great opportunity to learn more about the world that you live in, right? And to become part of a multicultural and a diverse community that ASO represents. So maybe what I want to see more, yes, a growth in numbers of Africans at Michigan Tech would be awesome. And also a growth in our number of members who may not necessarily be born African, but are African by virtue of everyone is African.
Yeah,
right?
That's true. The cradle, that's where life began, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then if we could really get out there a bit more, get together, summer's coming, so we look forward to that, you know, get together a bit more, a few more activities here and there, that'd be great. We look forward to seeing those who step up to serve ASO in the coming years. We'll be here to assist in whatever way, but that's what, constant growth.
Okay, that's interesting. So, which positions do you say would be very critical in maybe making ASO grow, where you would maybe ask maybe for talent, maybe some sort of qualification, maybe as a social organization, but which needs a bit of professionalism here and there, you know?
Yeah, what I would say about that is everyone is qualified.
Okay.
So there are no discriminating factors.
Thank you.
So just be a member of ASO.
And you're okay.
And you're okay. And then, be dedicated to its cause of making African diversity cultures visible and seen in our community. Uphold whatever great, awesome African virtues, that you have. And be an upstanding member of society, and you'd be great for ASO. Every year we need a new president, we need a new vice president, we need social chairs, we need a PR person, we need an academic chair, and we wish to fill these positions without incident, right? So this is a call out there that if you're a member, be so moved to serve. If you're not a member, be so moved to join us, right? And become part of this great community. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, President Alfred. This was a very, very informative session, and I've been a member for 1 year, and I think I've learned a lot of new stuff as we were going along.
So thank you for also having me on this.
It was a pleasure having you on the podcast. Okay. Thank you for watching this podcast. For more information, visit somtu.org. My name is Askai Fungura, and I hope to meet you next time. Thank you.